faculty, staff, and guests in person or watching online. Good evening and welcome to the Spring 2025 Associated Students Election Forum. Thank you for being here in the Caton Center with us tonight, and thank you to all of the viewers who are joining us virtually. For those who may not know me officially, my name is Adriana Brady, and I am currently serving as the Editor-in-Chief for the student-run publication, The Corsair, for the spring semester. It is my honor to stand in front of you tonight and to be moderating this forum. Tonight's event will serve as a platform for the students to hear from the candidates running for an elected position, a chance for them to express their concerns and to pose questions. Before we jump into the forum, I'd like to explain the role the Associated Students serves on campus as a reminder for all and for those who may not be aware. The Associated Students Board of Directors is composed of 16 student leaders elected by the SMC student body. They are chosen to represent students to faculty administration, including the Board of Trustees, and to ensure that students are seen and their voices are heard. The Associated Students additionally manages the AS yearly budget and approves AS funds, which primarily come from the student activity fee paid during enrollment that transfer into their activities and spending. But why is AS significant for students? Associated Students is the bridge between the student body and the administration, chosen at the hands of the students. To put it simply, you have the opportunity to elect the candidate whom you believe best represents your views and whose campaign will create the ideal representative AS board. Again, AS ensures that your ideas, your grievances, and your voices are addressed. However, AS is more than just the representation. Serving as an elected member encourages student leadership that extends beyond the classroom. It provides these student leaders with the chance to uphold the student body values, create a community, and actively work towards producing the best experiences for each and every SMC student. Tonight's forum serves as a reminder of the Corsair's commitment to accountability, transparency, and the coverage of our primary audience, the SMC community. All candidates running for leadership roles are invited to speak tonight, regardless of whether they're running opposed or unopposed. We want to give the student body a chance to get to know or even challenge their prospective leaders. With that being said, I wish each candidate the best throughout tonight and their campaigns, and I encourage the audience to exercise your democratic rights and to engage with the candidates that present themselves before you. Thank you. I will now call the candidates running unopposed for AS positions to the front. Each candidate will briefly introduce themselves to the audience. To ensure fairness and equity, candidates will be given a certain amount of time to speak per question. Each unopposed candidate will be given an allotted time of 3 minutes to respond to the question presented to them. Each unopposed candidate will be given an allotted time of 5 minutes to speak. Jenna Tibby, the Corsair's managing editor, will be keeping track of time for each question. For AS Vice President, I have Ike M. AS Director of Instructional Support, Brian Haranto. AS Director of Equity and Diversity, Gabriel Hernandez Perez. And SMC Student Trustee, Sofia Manavi. Are all of the candidates ready?
Yeah.
Yes. The candidates running for these unopposed positions will now introduce themselves. Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Ike, and I'm running as Vice President.
Hi, my name is Brian Hartanto. I'm running for Director of Instructional Support.
Hey everyone, my name is Gabriel Hernandez. I'm running for Director of Equity and Diversity.
Hi, I'm Sofia Manavi, and I'm running for Student Trustee.
All right. Anyone can answer. Why are you interested in running for your position, and why do you feel like you are qualified?
Excellent. All right, I wanted to run for Vice President because I believe it's the best role that lets me bridge the gap between student and leader. And I believe I'm qualified for this role because I've been part of AS since I started being a SMC student here. I'm on my second year. For my first year, I was a primary commissioner of the AS president, and for my second year, I'm currently the IC chair, and I believe I'm qualified to run for the AS vice president position.
I believe that I want to run for this position because I believe that everyone's success is important, and I want to make sure that no crosshair is left behind because every student deserves to succeed. I believe that I'm qualified for this position because I currently hold positions in supplemental instruction as well as tutoring in the Science Learning Resource Center. So I do know that how important tutoring services is to students all across the board.
I'm running for this position because I believe that everyone deserves a chance to be heard. And also, what makes me qualify for this is not just because I have had experience in the AS as director of publicity and also as director of program, but also because of my experiences. I've seen how campus we have a lot of diversity, but we need to be heard, we need to be seen. We have people who have disabilities, undocumented students, people of color, and none of them are being heard or none of them are being seen. And we need to be heard, we need to be seen. And I wanna heard, I wanna see.
I'm running for student trustee because I'm really passionate in making sure that every voice is heard. I think the student trustee's job is to inform the board of trustees of every student's position. So I don't think a student should go unheard from the board of trustees, especially because they're set up with making very tough decisions, and they need to have a student representation there to make sure their decision that is ultimately affecting the students is.
What do each of you hope to accomplish if you are elected to the position?
I think I can start first. I hope that even though tutoring services is widely used again in, throughout the school, I feel like not a lot of students still use it to its full potential. And with the recent threats or the concerns of budget cuts, my main concern is what if these services will be scaled back. That's one of my main concerns because, for example, as I said, with my jobs currently, I really see the value of these services and how they really help ensure success with students. So what I hope to accomplish is to expand more access and ensure that more people are, getting that help, and then we can deserve success for all students regardless of their educational background.
What I wish to accomplish is to make this campus more inclusive because I know that there are problems that are happening right now on current events, and I want to make it feel a place where we all belong, where we all feel that we can be ourselves on campus, where we don't need to be afraid to say who we are, what we believe on, or what our beliefs are in general. I want us to be equal on campus.
I think for me, having conversations with different people is very important just to understand their opinion, even if it's not something I agree with. And I think that's something that should be reported back to the Board of Trustees, no matter if I agree or disagree. If someone's passionate about something, then I'm the representative, so it should be heard.
I hope to accomplish two things for next year. First, I want to run a successful board. I want our next year board to work as a team, work well together, and be able to make sure that we can understand each other well. Second, I just want more students to be more involved in SMC overall, in the decisions that happen, like what happened in the background. I want more students to know what happens and how decisions are made about colleges, about our college.
For Ike, I have a question specifically for you. How do you plan to work accordingly alongside the future president of the Associated Students? How do you plan to work accordingly alongside the future president of Associated Students?
As my first year, I was the primary commissioner of the AS president, so I have a pretty good understanding of how the role works. So I think I'll be able to support them very well when they're in time of need because I'm very well informed on the role.
For Brian, which on-campus resources do you believe could be utilized by students more, and how will you encourage students to use them?
Well, there's not only one resource. I feel like there's multiple resources that still are underutilized by SMC students. One I could say is the STEM lab because I'm also part of the STEM program. Interacting with a lot of people on campus, I see that some people are like, Brian, I'm struggling with this class, and sometimes I just want them to know, like, hey, we got your back. We have the STEM lab for you. It's sometimes that bridging that gap from that student to the resource is some challenge that a lot of students still fear. I recently spoke with one of the students actually, and they said that a lot of students are afraid, like, oh, to reach out for help. Even if going to office hours, for example, it could be a daunting task for a new student to come in, like, oh, I'm a freshman in high school and I never interacted with professors. Most of the times these mentors in the STEM lab, or even like, for example, the Learning Resource Center, they're mostly guided by students. So if student to student could help, bridge that gap and also help other students, I feel like that would be tremendous towards all students.
For Gabriel? As AS Director of Equity and Diversity, are you still committed to upholding DEI responsibilities in the face of the new Trump administration's policies?
Yes, absolutely. I would still be committed to it, and my way to be using it and also commit to it is I would work with all of the programs that are on campus, such as the Equity Center, the Dream Program, Latino Center, Black Collegians, to find a way, find common ground so we can work and try to work something out on it.
For Sophia?
Yep.
How do you plan to make your voice and the students' voices heard amongst the Board of Trustees?
I think it's very important that I have a good relationship with the Board of Trustees, so I'm able to share what I believe and also what I know my fellow students believe, because I don't think it's just what I believe. I think it's what the whole student body believes, and I'm this whole student body's representation, not just for myself.
I'd like to open it up to the audience if they have any questions. Please come up.
All right. So with regard to the person who takes care of instructor support, what was your name again?
Brian?
Brian, okay. So currently I'm in a math class, and I noticed that, well, I have some concerns about teaching quality. I've noticed that a lot of the students have dropped the class. A lot of students have difficulty grasping the material. And the specific concern is with regard to the teaching quality. How will you encourage better performance from instructors? Is there a way that you can facilitate expectations in terms of hiring and maintaining the employment of certain instructors based off performance?
I see. So let me clarify a question. You mean by instructors, by professors, is that correct?
Sure, instructors, professors.
Okay. So in a sense, as a position in ES, we don't really collude, or we don't really deal direct with instructors themselves. Instructors themselves are, they're maintained by the SMC administration, so it is not, in a sense, it's not under the control of associated students. From our sense, we can only advocate for students themselves, and I feel like your concerns are very, it's really widespread. I've talked to a lot of students, and even my peers or my friends, they all say the same thing, oh, this professor is so hard, and I hear like these professors are just, they teach horribly, for example. The only way we could kind of solve that issue as a first response is to provide better, supplemental instruction, which is through the math lab. But in terms of, how do I say it, instructor-wise, we currently do not have control in terms of hiring, and performance are done by the administration themselves and the how do I say it? It's the math department. So what I could do as well, and thank you for bringing up that question as well, we could develop a program where students can speak up and say, oh, hey, I'm really concerned about this professor or this instructor, and I really want to bridge that gap between administration and students. So we could maybe give a platform for students to speak about, the quality of instruction being provided in the school.
So yeah, okay, sure. So I I heard your solution. You said your hands were tied and that you can only recommend supplemental instruction. But um, some would say that you could there's a lot more you can do in terms of advocacy. There's a lot of more solutions that a candidate could offer besides supplemental instruction. But so you said your only solution was supplemental instruction. But yeah, I would just encourage some type of performance-based encouragement with regard to advocacy to make sure instructors are meeting expectations and that the success of the student is being facilitated. So how would you, this is another question I have, how would you improve the attendance policy?
Of classes?
Yes, of students.
Attendance policy is, again, something that is a big concern between students today. It's because, some students, they feel that, oh, I can't do this class, it's better that I drop, or, oh, you know
Can
what?
you speak a little bit louder?
Oh, sorry. So attendance is quite a concern, and today's, a lot of students are concerned that, or they usually just drop after like a few days. Oh, you know what? I give up. I can't do this. So, I mean, in a sense, we all feel overwhelmed once in our lives, right? Well, the only way that I'm sorry, not the only way, but one of the ways that we could encourage students to, keep going is to build that, encouragement, like you said, encouragement, support, and also bridge them to resources such as the tutoring centers. And, slowly but surely we can build, students' confidence and, succeed in the class and say, hey, actually you can do it, or make them feel like, oh, actually I can do it, by giving them, the motivation and also the instructional support or the support they need.
So my question was, how would you advocate to improve the attendance policy? What is your solution to improve the attendance policy?
The attendance policy,
Because a lot of students will argue it's too dictatorial, it's too overwhelming, and it interferes with student success. The attendance policy interferes with student success. That's what a lot of people will argue. How would you improve that?
if I can clarify, do you mean by, the students, you mean by the policy that students have to be in class? Is that what you're trying to ask?
So the policy is if you miss about 2 or 3 classes, that the whole class is dropped.
I see. Well, again, it depends on each instructor. Some instructors are okay with some students just coming in, coming out whenever they feel like. Some professors, they provide, recordings and, allowing the students to come in and watch them as long as they do the exams. So, again, we can't really control, or we can't determine each professor's way of teaching, because they have their own set of core values and set how they want students to learn. But in terms of advocacy, maybe if some students feel like they're having a hard time and they can't attend class, making a space that maybe is one of my missions, is that so the students can talk to us, and we will try to speak with the administration or maybe the department themselves to see that if there's any solutions that we could come up with.
Okay, so you don't have a solution for the attendance policy?
It's not that we don't have a solution.
Well, you specifically.
For me, no. It's not that I can't give a solution. Each student is a case-by-case basis. So we can't just say a one-size-fits-all solution. We must deal it case by case.
Okay, so that was with regard to advocacy and the attendance policy.
Correct. Yeah.
Students' rights. Okay.
So that people can have some more time.
Okay.
Would you give your name just so that we can get it for any of our recording and everything?
Okay, yeah. My name's Gibson. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Greetings. My name is Johan Diaz. Greetings. So I have a question for the Vice President. how would you make kids more involved about being SMC? Or how would you make kids more involved at SMC? Like, what would you do differently that's not already being done now?
I want to say because of my job as IC chair now, I'm interacting with a lot of students. Whether I like to or not, I'm interacting with a lot of students, a lot of leaders that I are connected to, a lot of club leaders. And because of that, it has allowed me to build, I would just say overall skills to meet students who are interested in doing more. Because as the vice president, I have the ability to basically put people as representatives in committees like the Great Appeal Committee. I want to say I believe I do have the skills to appoint.
Well, I'm saying, what would you do? Like, what exactly is it that you would do, or what skills do you have that, like what SMC is SMC, but like, what are you gonna do to make it different?
What do you mean?
What are you gonna do to make it like? If you're saying you want people more passionate about being at Santa Monica, but like, what are you gonna do that makes them more passionate? You're saying you're gonna put people in trust committees, but what is that gonna do for the?
My job is to put the correct people in the correct positions, and I believe I am doing my job at that. But if you're regarding the aspects of if you want to talk about like Santa Monica overall, that would be out of my range because I believe to do my job well, I would need to talk to individual students, which I will do that. But would your overall question be about changes in Santa Monica?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's just like you said your thing was you wanted to make students more involved at SMC, right?
Yeah.
So how would you do that?
When I mean involved, I mean more in the background process of SMC.
What, like, define what is background?
Background meaning like
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, what is involvement? Like, what you define what involvement is. Then.
Involvement in background being like, for example, like AS, being involved in more of AS in the committees that make the decisions.
But even like, what does AS do then? Like
AS do?
Right. What is the committee like? Yes. Like, what is the actual changes being implemented? You're just kind of telling me what actual changes like.
What actual changes?
Like, I don't know. It's just you're just telling me there's going to be electing people, but like.
Okay, I can give you a very basic example, like flavor for basic needs. A basic example would be working for Flavor, which gives out free food to students, and I could elect people that are needed for that position. That, for example, students who can't afford food, we can have committees that gets people food. Like the one we're working on right now is for, like I said, Flavor that gives out free food.
Okay.
And I believe I have the skills to elect those people. I've talked to a lot of people over my 2 years here. I've talked to a lot of people, and I know a lot of people that would work well in certain positions. That would just be one example.
Okay. And then for how would you bridge the gap between the resources, and what would you do to implement the gap?
Is the question for me?
Yes.
So how would I bridge the gap?
Yeah, what would you do to bridge the gap between students and their resources?
Okay. The thing is, what most students feel currently, or what's causing that gap, is the lack of knowledge and also the fear factor. Okay? The lack of knowledge, we can solve it by either giving out more flyers, or we could work with administration in a sense. For example, we have the Welcome Center. The Welcome Center has a promise program where high school students can join directly and they get 2 years free of tuition. And we could partner with the Welcome Center to tell new students, hey, we have tutoring all over campus. By investing that into that new freshman students, like, hey, for the first time they step into this campus, we say, hey, we got your back. You can go to tutoring, and my goal is to help to use the resources of associate students to advocate for that. And then the fear factor is that I might develop a program where we can do peer mentors in a sense. We have a lot of programs. For example, we used to work with peer navigators, and peer navigators is one of the programs that advocates for first-gen students, for Black and brown students. And by using these departments like peer navigators, or maybe the Adelante program, or maybe the STEM lab, we will work with the STEM lab, to say, to encourage them and reduce their fear factor. I feel like we can slowly bridge that gap. So example, like we're just trying to close that gap from multiple fronts in a sense, so that all students can be aware and can take advantage of those resources.
And then, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just making sure.
Just an announcement, we are capping each person's questions at 2 to allow for fair time.
Make sure to say your name as well.
And please speak into the mic. Thank you.
I'll try.
All right, my name is Kylie Ascano, and I do have a question for Ike. So being that you're running under the Big Idea slate, you're not.
I got that asleep.
Oh, okay. Well, my question, I'll get it out, why I was bringing it up. I was going to question, do you think that you are fully capable of having positive interactions if another candidate is elected that wasn't part of your slate? But being that you've dropped it, then I guess maybe that's not as much of a concern if you're independent now.
I would say I'm very down for the idea of that. I want to say that because I've been part of the board for like almost 2 years now, I love the interactions that we have. I would say last year's board, this year's board, I would say I want to say I made lifelong friends here. So I'm looking forward to people with different opinions than me.
Yeah, it was more kind of like when you join a slate or you're running in a slate, it forms an alliance and kind of like, you know, you feel obligated to, you know, pick a person, you know, uplift a certain person. So my concern was, let's say you have no competition in this election, do you?
I don't.
Okay, so you're going to go by default. So my concern initially, and before you told me you're independent now, was that let's say you get elected but your partner doesn't get elected, then will there be some animosity there? But now that you're independent, that really isn't a concern of mine. And then for Brian, I wanted to tag on to a question that was asked earlier, kind of an idea he was saying. It's not really a question so much as like a little recommendation. It would be really useful for people with underprivileged students that need certain resources. You mentioned the fear factor, which is very much a real thing. It would be really nice if there was an avenue for people to not anonymously, but like let's say a social media page or something where you could reach out via DM or whatever and say, hey, I'm in need of X, Y, or Z. And then you can arrange a meeting with someone who's capable of organizing these resources for them, and maybe in a discrete area, like, or in an office that is not so obvious, and that way they can get the aid that they need without feeling like other people in the student body are witnessing them go through a time of need. Just a recommendation, but that's it.
I appreciate your recommendation, Kylie, and I will look into it more. Thank you.
Okay.
One second.
Thank you. This one is for, I'm Andrea. I'm the current director of activities. And this one is for Sophia. Given your non-voting role in AS board meetings, describe your strategy for effectively influencing decisions and ensuring student perspectives are represented.
Yeah, so I believe even though I don't have a direct vote in what in the decisions of the board, I believe I could still persuade and provide my opinion, not only my opinion, but the students' opinion on each individual matter, still advise the board and still provide my opinion. And then you were asking about how I want to reach out to everyone, reach out to all of the students and get their perspectives. I think that's really something I want to do just by going around and having different conversations with people, making myself available for different perspectives and making some sort of avenue available so that if you have any concerns or anything that I could help with, making that easily accessible.
Okay. And how would you represent student interests effectively in situations where student priorities conflict with decisions made by the Board of Trustees?
So I think my job is to represent the students, so I should always be on the sides of the students, even if the students' opinions conflict. I believe that I should represent both sides and I should describe both sides equally, even if it's not something that I personally believe in.
My question is, how would you represent student interest when it's a conflict with the trustees?
Oh, like the trustees versus the students. How would I make
The presentation of
the student know? Yeah, yeah. I I think reaching this trustees with some humanity and with some like talking to them face to face, talking to them with humanity and humility of just this is what the students believe and they're ultimately there not only to represent the interests they're there to represent the interests of the students too. They're there for the college, they're there for the thing. So I think really appealing to that is something I could work on.
Hello, my name is Isaiah. I'm part of the Santa Monica Corsair. I just have a question for Gabriel. You mentioned that you want to kind of advocate for the students who don't feel heard. So what are you planning to do to make sure those students that don't feel heard do feel heard?
So on my personal experience, thank you so much for asking first of all. On my personal experience, there are times when I want to, okay, let me explain better. So I'm a student with a disability, and I've never felt or I've never seen anybody presenting and representing students with disabilities. I've never seen anybody like speaking up on like students with disabilities. We do have the DSPS, but it doesn't really do much for us. Or like I've never seen us engaging in activities. And that's where I want to find a common ground with them, with DSPS, so we can make them heard. And going back to your question, how would I make it happen? I would try to reach out to them and I would try to make them send emails to these students and they can email me or like anonymously find a way so they can be anonymous and they can email me and give me their issues, what's happening with them, what they want to happen, and anything they want to speak on.
Okay, so are you speaking as an emotion from an emotion of they don't feel heard, or these students who are actually coming to you saying, "Oh, I don't feel heard in this area"? Because from what you said, you have seen these. So is it this emotion, or is this more of people coming to you like, "Hey, I don't feel heard in this aspect"?
I would say both because I was speaking with a few students earlier and both of them have said that yeah, they have never been heard or they have never been felt seen by anybody, by the student body. And I have also worked with the student body and when I was running the social media, some of them would tell me like, why don't you ever like do anything for these people? Or why don't you ever do anything for these people specifically? And that's true. There are many people who we have never really like looked at. We have never tried to go and see what they need, what their needs are. It's not just about me. I get that you say that, but I just me like trying to explain it better on my point of view. But it's about them. It's about everybody else.
All right. Thank you so much.
Do we have any other ones? Say your name.
Hi. Is this working? Okay. Hi, my name's Tiffany, and I am the current AS secretary. So I have a question for Gabriel. There are a lot of endless resources for equity and diversity programs at SMC. As the new director of equity and diversity, what would you do differently to make your own?
My own impact is so I know that we have a lot of we do have a lot of resources. Actually, nobody really uses them. If I'm being honest, they're pretty hidden because they're not being exposed. They're not being told to students that we have them. We have the equity and diversity. We have the Dream Resource Center. We even have lawyers at school. I don't know if you guys know this, but we have lawyers that are offered for free to anybody, literally. So yeah, what would I make so everybody can see it? I would try to host an event so I can bring these people, these resources, and I could expose them to everyone. And that would happen on a Tuesday and a Thursday because that's when the events happen. Because it has never happened, honestly. Like, nobody knows about these resources. Like, I've never seen anybody talking about them or using them. And we do have money in school that should be used for students.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bay Achirimofor. I'm a student here and also a member of the Corsair magazine as well, or newspaper, rather. I'm not too good with names, so this is going to be an open-ended question and anyone can answer. So question number one to anyone that feels led to answer is, how do you protect students being harassed by other students? So how do you protect students who are being harassed by other students? And when I say other students, an individual who's also coming to SMC who may or may not be diagnosed as being on the spectrum, but they're interfering with the learning of another student.
I mean, if I could say a little bit. So, concern of safety is really something that's been pressing recently, especially with the very tense, I'll say, conflicts between students. And also, not only that, not between students, but as you said, people or maybe people from outside of the, not from the college, there's a threat where students are under attack by that, right? If I could tell a little bit of story, I used to work with admissions, the admissions, and there was one time where we actually experienced that happening in our office. I mean, it ended up being like SMC police taking care of it, but in terms of what AS can do is we can always advocate for better safety and work closely with the SMC police department in ensuring how can we provide these safety services for students. For example, there's one, I'm not sure if it's still ongoing, but students can request the police department to accommodate them or accompany them to the bus stop or to the train station, or I feel it's like around the campus. It's still there.
I don't know, but I'm fascinated by that, like an escort service?
Yes, so again, you might have to check with SMC police if they still provide with that. But if you are a student and you feel unsafe when you're exiting your class, maybe at 7 when it's already dark outside, you can always call police and they will help you escort you to your car, to the bus stop, and the main job of having a police department on campus is to ensure student safety. So what the associate students can do is to work closely with together and provide safe spaces. Or imagine if let's say God forbid some like there's a dangerous situation where students come in and like, oh no, I'm being harassed by this. Maybe the associate students we could like shelter them in our office and stop them from harassing the student themselves. Yeah.
Thank you. And my second question is, there are budget cuts that our school is currently facing. How can you guys help align us with public officials and other movers and shakers to help save funding for SMC classes and extracurricular activities that is threatened to further be reduced by the state?
So I'll take this one. So I think as the student trustee, I think it would be very important to actually go to our local higher up officials, the local state officials, the local city officials, federal officials, to make sure they really understand like the type of things that we do here at SMC, because I feel like there's so many good programs and so many good things that just these officials just don't know about. And I think just getting people's individual stories and how one program has helped them do something, I think that's really important. That's something that should really be done, just because there shouldn't be budget cuts, and we should be trying to expand ours.
I think sooner or later, yes, I believe we should advocate towards helping our students not get budget cut, like not being cut out of our funds. But I will say, whether we like it or not, some budget cuts will have to happen. And I want to say it just comes down to how we're smart with how we get cut down, and we have to choose which gets cut more. What do students like more? What do we need more? We just have to be smart with our money.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
We're going to cut that off here. Thank
Thank you to all the unopposed candidates for being up here. Free to sit down. That's all we have for you.
Thank you.
I am now going to call up to the front the two candidates for the Associate Director of External Affairs, Liz Lee and Ashley Hay. Same questions for you. Why are you interested in running for your position, and why do you feel like you are qualified?
So hi guys, so my name is Liz, and the reason why I'm running for this position is that if you be a external affairs, that means that you can meet like professional people on different fields, and you get to like talk to them and communicate with them, and even collaborate with them. And for me, it's really like a good opportunity for me, because I believe like if strong people, when they're gathering together, I believe that it would only makes me stronger, if you guys know what I mean. Yeah. So that's the reason. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley, and I strongly believe in students' voices and their representation. I've always been a strong advocate for like having students know what's going on and having them like be part of any like decision-making processes. And I believe if I'm able to serve in this role, I will be able to represent the student body to its fullest extent. I've lived both in California, I was born here, and in like other countries such as Taiwan and Saudi Arabia, so I believe like this diverse experience will allow me to understand the student body better, because I know what's like to be both a domestic and international student and integrating into like a different environment.
As Director of External Affairs, who specifically are you looking to reach out to build connections at SMC for the students, and why?
Okay, I can go first. So, although I'm not in a slate with the same slate as the Director of Budget and as a Director of Budget and Director of Equity, I would like to work closely with them, because first, a lot of people in like marginalized groups, they aren't the people that are part of these like decision-making places and actually enforcing the policy. So, for example, the recent discussion in Sacramento, they started cutting a lot of budgets, whether that's for student aid or funding for community colleges. So by like encouraging and supporting our existing programs like Adelante and like the Black Collegians like scholars, will be able to bring out more representation of the students. And as for Director of Budgets, I believe it's really important to have transparency in everything. This is like slightly off topic, but a lot of students don't seem to know like what's going on. So even like this election, when we were out campaigning, or even just talking to my friends, a lot of people just did not know anything. So I would like to have more transparency and to let them know what, like where these budgets, like where the money is going to, so they can work closely together with the student government and like implement what is most important to us. And lastly, I would also like to work with Director of Instructional Support. And I would like to create like potentially outreach programs or student workshops, or to collaborate with like existing programs such as like Cal Nerds. So it can open students up to opportunities like internships and like work opportunities, and connect with students from other universities.
Okay, so for me, I don't have like an exact answer for the officials outside the campus, but I do have one official that in campus that I want to collaborate with, which is the Equity Center, because from my experience, so this is my second semester here at SMC, and then so this semester so before this semester I didn't know there's a place called Equity Center, and then so my friends told me that, and it kind of blew my mind because I don't know there's a place in campus that can actually let you like rest or studying or just just take a break in there, and I didn't know that. So when I know about that kind of resources, I was so like kind of excited because I didn't know that. So from my experience, I believe there is still like some students. Okay, so most of the students, I believe they don't know that place. So I want all the students to know that there's actually a place that you can really be yourself in campus. And if you want to just, do whatever, like take a break or something, you can always go, like there's always a place that you can go to. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
We're gonna limit it to one right now. Yeah, one person, one question per person.
Hi, my name is Isaiah, once again with the Santa Monica Corsair. My question is for Lizzie. When you were talking about why you wanted to be the person for external affairs, you said it is a great opportunity for you to grow. Are you looking more for a personal gain, or are you more advocating for the student success?
Thank you for the question. So first of all, I believe this position potentially works as like a foundation of the campus because you get to communicate with the officials, which the students can reach out. So as a representative, I believe I want to do both because first of all, like what I said, like students don't have that kind of opportunity to reach out to the officials. So, and that's my job. So yeah, so for the students, I would, like, I'm so sorry. So I would like to build this strong foundation so that, if we have this strong foundation that students can, hold on to, then it's not only benefit from me, but also the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? This will be the last question then, just the one. Yeah, you can hold on to it so that they can hear.
I can see.
Oh, it's for the YouTube
stream,
the live stream.
Hi, well, can I answer that question first?
Just the one.
Well, okay. So there's a lot of events on campus, right? How will you work to bring awareness to the events on campus? For instance, students didn't even know about this election nor this event. So how would you bring more awareness to the events? I know you work with external, but I'm wondering.
Thank you for your question. I think this is actually quite an important question because while we were campaigning, I think this is quite an important question because while we're campaigning, as he said, a lot of people did not know the elections were even happening. Personally, I get most of my information through like the program's emails, so like STEM, scholars, etc. And I believe one of the easiest ways we can notify of students more of these events is by emails, by social media, because that's where students usually check and scroll through, and encourage for people to repost such events and tell their friends so there's more visibility.
So for me, so actually I think social media is really not that important because from my experiences and my friends' experiences, even though we actually follow those accounts, we actually don't really look into it. So I think I would like to let the school to send out the email for all the students, not only the student in the program, because I don't want students to be like we're abandoned or something. Because, like for example, this AS election, I knew this information because I'm in the Scholar program. But what about the student that is not in the Scholar program, and what if they also want to like, become a part of AS. So my suggestion is that all the students should be added into the email list, not just the students in a specific program. Thank you.
How about posting it in cafeterias?
Yeah, so actually there are so many flyers posted in the cafeteria, right? But like also, so still from my experiences, like people don't really check those stuff. And as I heard from my friends, they actually don't look at those stuff because they're just like flyers. So if we can really
You
send
know
them.
that so there's a posting about this.
I'm sorry?
There's a specific posting about this event in the cafeteria.
For AS election?
Yeah.
No, I don't know that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you to the candidates for external affairs.
Thank you for your time.
Now, last but not least, I would like to call the 4 candidates for Associated Students President to the front: Rico Santana, Aisa Ortiz, Samir Wasson, and Valeria Castillo. Are you all ready? For everyone, why are you interested in running for Associated Students President, and why do you feel like you are qualified?
Hello, my name is Rico Santana. I'm running for AS President. The reason why I feel like I'm qualified is mainly because I'm in the architecture program. I've learned a lot of different things through the competitions that I've been competing through over the years, building teamwork with my teammates, and I feel like that's an aspect that I could learn to basically insert into this role to build a better community with the people that are around us.
Hello, my name is Samir Wasson. I'm a mathematics, economics, and political science major here at Santa Monica College. This is my first year here, and in this first year I've had the opportunity to get involved with all types of programs, including Associated Students, the Scholars Program, and numerous clubs on campus. I've had the opportunity of working with our budget commissioner to ensure that our clubs get adequate funding in order to do adequate outreach, to grow their interests, to find their identities. I've also done work for the Santa Monica community. I've worked at Venice Family Clinic. I was registering voters in the 2024 election, and I've done research for downtown Santa Monica, enhancing our community engagement, looking at data and individual stories to make sure that people are heard, both in the numbers and through their voice. I feel like I'm qualified for AS President, not just because I can be a conduit for information, but because my voice is strong, because the voice of our students is the people we're trying to represent. And with that, I'm the person that can take that to the board, to our local and federal representatives, to make sure that your voices are heard in the most fragile time that we've ever lived in. I want to make sure that every single student, whether you're part-time, whether you're full-time, whether you're returning to school after 3 months or 30 years, that you have a voice here at Santa Monica.
Hi everybody, my name is Aisa Ortiz, and why I'm running is because I believe this position is more than a title, and whoever's in this position should view you all more than a student. Now, what makes me qualified is my ripple effect on campus has been seen and shown through the amplified voices of our marginalized communities. Gabriel touched on so many experiences, and having the support of all the women on campuses, having the conversations with them, knowing the disparities that are all across campus, and with my focus and studies on political science and law, I understand how to advocate for improvements. And I've also actually used the services here, like the Equity Center, like the Math Center, like the STEM Lab, like the Latino Center, and I'm including Law Pathway and Scholars. So I know what it's like to navigate SMC, and I believe with my background in activism and community organizing outside of SMC, I know how to clean up a mess and connect with the community.
Hello everyone, my name is Valeria Castillo, and I'm the current AS Director of Equity and Diversity. My major is Political Science and Mathematical Economics, as well as I'm here. And why I'm running for this position? I'm running for this position because I've been a long time in SMC, and I've seen its potential, I've seen its resources. I've connected with the Latino program, the DSPS program, the scholars programs, as well as the athletics program, and I'm very well versed in its resources, and I see how much it can offer, how much it offers already, but how much it can offer to its students. Still, we face a lot of challenges. We buy food that is too expensive for us. We buy textbooks that are too expensive for us. This is a community college. Why are we doing this? I advocated and statewide. I'm part of the Student Senate for California Community Colleges as a caucus leader, and I want to bring those ideas back to SMC so that we can build a better campus.
For each candidate, how are you planning to uphold and address every student's concerns when they may vary widely and not always align with yours?
Well, the way I would do that is first I would just listen. I think having a conversation with a student, you get to basically see what their issues are and figure out with them how to sometimes there are many different services on the campus and pointing them in the right direction. Sometimes even just walking with them to that, building could be the life-changing thing that works. Or even if helping them plan. I feel like it's not your job to help them plan, but you give out suggestions like, hey, maybe you should speak to this counselor, or if you're in this program, you should speak to this counselor. Because I feel like, we have the resources here, we have a lot of resources here, and I feel like they're just not being utilized.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. How are you planning to uphold and address every student's concerns when they may vary widely and not always align with yours?
That's a great question. I think meeting people where they are is always the greatest solution that I've had when I've dealt with varied and interesting perspectives from all different types of people. I think, even going out and tabling, being able to meet people face to face and shake hands, that's something that's really big for me. Being able to see people and talk to people face to face, meeting them where they are down on campus during our activity hour, meeting them in class, meeting them in our office, in office hours, and coordinating those emails, coordinating those meetings, making sure that people, if they have the opportunity, if they have the grievance, if they have something that they want to address, that they have the opportunity to address it. It's not something that's so far removed. I think right now what we see is that Associated Students seems like this some far away entity. People get elected and you don't really hear from them again. What's important is that we address people throughout the year. Not just during election season, not just when we need some votes, not just when we need students to go out and speak for us. We need to speak for our students by going and meeting them where they are. That's my biggest solution.
So during Club Awareness, I went around and I recorded what people actually wanted to see at SMC. What were their stories, and what were the difficulties that they are facing. And what I've come to realize is whether those differences and those needs are completely opposing each other, or we might not have power to control that. What I've realized is they're all connected to the same issue. They're all rooted in the same systemic struggles that we all deal with. And so what we need to do when it comes to complex ideas that have various different outcomes and how they affect an individual on an individual level, it's important to list those down and let's categorize them. When we can categorize them, we can trace back where are they rooted from. Because we can add these band-aids like, let's do more outreach, let's post more on social media, we can talk about AS. But what is the strategy, and are we getting to the root problem?
So my job as AS president is not to make them share my same belief or to make them like me. My job is to amplify their voices, to make sure their problems are being heard by administration and by associated students. I will work with them closely, talk to them personally, and figure out what is the gap that we're not reaching as AS and work with the board in order to solve those problems.
What is your plan to foster a team environment amongst the AS board, and how would you handle potential conflicts?
Personally, the question was, how would I?
What is your plan to foster a team environment amongst the board, and how would you handle potential conflicts?
Oh, so I think the best way to foster a great team is basically to appoint people into positions, like I believe he was saying over here. But I also believe having conversations with people, figuring out what their strengths are, asking them what their weaknesses are, or just observing and putting people in positions where they can succeed, and not just putting people in places just because there needs to be a person there. I think I should also go through the opportunity to hey, what is your major? What are your interests? What are your the basic conversational starter points where you talk to a person, just who are you, how are you, what do you want to do, how do you want to do this, and then try to implement their plans and compromise. Compromise is one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't want to do nowadays because they feel like they're right and their point is the only thing that matters. But I'm someone who I don't know it all. I really don't. All I know is architecture, and I am 100% clear with that. But a part of architecture is creating a plan, site analysis, massings, which is a process. So if you go through that process and you take people along with you through that process, you foster like an understanding of this is how it's done. Because I may not have the words, I may not be the most charismatic person to like express these things, but I know somebody who can. And if you point to that person, you give that person an opportunity to shine. And I think that's what it takes to be a good leader. It's not necessarily, it's not always about you, it's about the people, and that's what I would like to try to do.
I think I embrace conflict. I think conflict is a telltale sign that people care about what they do. I think arguments can be restructured as debate. I think that conflict is a crucial learning opportunity for all of us. Like I heard over here, I don't know it all. And I'm proud of it because that gives me an opportunity to learn further as I grow into this position, as I grow from the people around me, right? We all have a job, and that conflict to me, what that tells me is that you care about your job. If we have different opinions and we're willing to voice it, what that tells me is that you are moving far, right, along the process of getting something done, making an actual cement, solid plan to get something done to make lasting change. And that to me, I think conflict is crucial. I think conflict is essential to making substantial and sustainable change. Now, fostering a team environment, that comes hand in hand with conflict. Being able to restructure, like I mentioned before, restructure this conflict as debate, right? To understand that we're all doing our best to make the best changes that we can in the best way that we think, and to learn from each other. That's how I foster a team environment here in AS.
So fostering a team environment starts with your leadership, right? And so what is your leadership running off of? Well, luckily, the big idea, we're running off of community, humanity, transparency, culture, and enlightenment. So with that being said, what does it take to build a community, and what does that mean? That means showing up for each other, having those conversations, saying hi. If you walk around in Guatemala, everyone will say hi to you when you're walking down the street, and you will be like, why are you saying hi to you? I don't know you. And because that is a culture where they recognize you, they see you, and they respect your life. That type of recognition within a community, within a group, builds trust. And that is what minimizes conflict. And conflict usually arises when there is distrust, when there is miscommunication, and everyone has their own agenda. So how do we have clear communication, and how do we maintain one page? So having those discussions, being clear on expectations is how we can minimize conflict, but building community is recognizing everybody's dignity.
As a board, conflict is inevitable. We have very diverse opinions, and we can all highlight a different aspect that we can put together into work. Part of having a strong leadership is being able to unite those different forces and make sure we can move forward. Serving as a board, I have experience working with different opinions and reaching to a solution together. I don't discourage conflict. In fact, I make sure I understand why this conflict happens and what can we do to get to an agreement.
I'd like to open it up to the audience if they have any questions.
Sequoia, my name is Sequoia. I have a question for Aisa. What does being an enlightened student mean to you?
Being an enlightened student, that means not just learning something to apply it to a test, but learning something so you can apply it to your life. So for example, one of my friends, she is a nursing major, and she has gone to college, dropped out of college, starting over at SMC. She takes care of her brothers and sisters, and she might study her work and her progress, but she might not necessarily understand exactly what is she learning because she's coming from an underserved background. But after having communications, having conversations with her, I'll be talking about, yeah, you know, when I'm talking to, she asked me, how are you confident when you to go to school and talk to people? And I said, well, it's about reading the person who you're talking to, reading their body language, understanding how they're receiving you and what you're communicating to them. She instantly connected. She was like, that's what we were talking about in my cultural competency class. And so she was so happy. She's like, oh my God, you really put it in perspective. You really made it in like, and so then she's like, I really understand. That's what it really is like to communicate and connect with people. So enlightenment is not just about taking a test, acing your classes, and getting a degree. It's about applying it to your life and using it to maximize your dreams, your potential, and who you are, things that you have not discovered about yourself. Enlightenment is what brings us forward, what pushes us beyond our own reality.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gibson. So everyone is running for president, Associated Student Government Body President. So it's crucial and critical that we have elected members who exhibit integrity, who actually want to carry out their responsibilities. So, and we with that, we want competence too. So integrity and competence. So I have two questions, which will demonstrate capacity and it'll will help us understand who is capable and who would fit the role. Can you say your credential, the amount of credits you have or your degree, along with two concerns and two solutions? So two of the biggest concerns for students and your solution for each one, along with your credentials.
I'm going to start. My name is Rico Santana again, architecture major. But before we even get to that, I want to go back to what you were asking before. You were saying that there was an issue with like someone who was not being able to go to math class. That was something that really like stuck out with me, because I feel like during that process, like when you're having issues between teachers and things, there's a lot of conflict that could arise because like there's a generational gap. There's new lingo that we use. There's new like things that happen that like make it hard to dictate like a person's character, and I feel like there's a mismatch when it comes to teachers sometimes. So in that situation, I would talk to you. I would be like, yo, like what teacher is it? I would walk with you to that class, like me personally. I would be like, oh, like is this the teacher? We'd go to the class, we could have a conversation, and then also outside of that, I would even also like advise on study materials. There's tutors in the library, and I'd be like, I'd try to be a friend, but like, bro, like let's get through this together. Let's figure it out, like how we're gonna do this. And now you just asked, what are two issues that
two main concerns have in your solutions, along with your credibility, your ethos, your credentials.
Okay.
So that ties into competence. So your credentials and two concerns and your two solutions.
So my two concerns would be, I could only speak for myself and what I was going through. So I feel like school is a challenging place when you go through it alone, and it's hard to find community. There's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of like different positions, there's a lot of things going on. So I feel like being the change I want to see would be just being able to approach people and point them in the right direction, and also like walking them through the process. I feel like we could sometimes like I don't know. That's really just what it is. I really don't know. So I want to learn with you. So it's like, oh, like what is this program? What are you looking for? What is this? What's going on? You need to go to the Dream Center. Oh, I'll walk with you. That way, so we can both learn what's going on. So that's one way. That's one issue I would go for. As far as homelessness, I feel like that's a big issue that I've been seeing. I know that there's the bodega. There's resources on campus as far as like food. There's also, if you go through the website, there's like housing information and things of that nature. I would also, again, because I really don't know, I would go through that process with you. I would say, okay, show me where it is, what you're looking for, and let me also ask, my professor. Let me ask Benny. Let me ask whoever I know. I'm that guy that's going to reach out for you and actually talk to people for you as a person. So.
I like that. So I'm just going to clarify, you have two problems and two solutions to those problems. I just want to make sure I'm answering the question. Okay. And my credentials.
Maximum amount of credits.
Right.
Or your degree you may have.
Right.
That ties As in the competence?
I'll start with that. That sounds good. So, my major, I'm a mathematics, economics, political science major. I took, I think, 6 credits over the summer, 16 credits last semester, 3 credits over the winter, and I'm taking 18 credits this semester. I got a full load, and I know how to balance it, but that's my credentials right there. When I'm talking outside of that, work with the community. I worked with the community right here, our student community. I'm a supplemental instructor. I teach macroeconomics alongside a professor here at Santa Monica. Outside of the community, I've worked at Venice Family Clinic, which is just down the road on Pico. We did a lot of voter registration. I work with our homeless population out in Venice, right here in Santa Monica, in Torrance, in Long Beach, all of these places where we see these struggles with voter engagement, civic engagement. Also, I mentioned before, I worked at downtown Santa Monica, so I know both sides. I know how to work the story, I know how to take stories from people and make that into action, and I know how to look at the numbers, and I know how to put those and use those in my action. Now, the 2 things that I'm most concerned about here at Santa Monica, and I love the problems that were addressed here, but I want to get to the root cause of this and the root solution to all of this. At the end of the day, we won't be able to address these problems successfully if we are in a budget crisis and our students are not represented in this budget crisis. As many of you know, the Corsair released a great piece on Santa Monica's looming budget crisis. We've already made 5% cuts in our class schedule for winter. We did it for spring, and it's also coming for fall of 2025. That means students are getting less classes. They're going to other community colleges to enroll in those classes. That means less full-time students here. That's a problem to me, because that means we're not getting the funding that we need to make these programs that are addressing these root problems. We're not making those happen because we're too busy trying to cover the bare minimum, which is trying to get these students in education. If we can't get a student in education, we can't even go far and beyond and make all these other services happen. The second problem I'm worried about, and I'm most worried about, is our national and state level politics and how they're going to affect our students. When we look at the federal level, we are seeing an attack on education, we are seeing an attack on free speech, we are seeing an attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I want to make sure that that does not continue. I will be forming at Santa Monica College Student Lobby Corps, a group of students that takes up arms to the Capitol, to the state Capitol, to the local federal to the local buildings, to the federal buildings. And actually, we have a team to make sure that we're talking to those representatives not during election season, not once a semester. We're going every month. We're going bi-weekly. We're talking to the people that actually make sustainable change for education, that are making sustainable change on the federal, state, and local level. Those are my 2 problems, and those are my 2 solutions.
Aisa?
Okay, just political bias concern that, that could, there's Republican students, there's Democrats.
Oh, I'm all for it. I love it. I think free speech is all about it.
So as far as credentials, I have a 3.71 GPA, 33 credits, taking 33 credits currently. I'm taking 9 credits right now. Even though I'm part-time, that is because I work 30 hours a week at a public health nonprofit as a community outreach supervisor, disseminating public health messages that are prioritized by the governor's office to high-need communities all across LA. So I'm part of Law Pathway. I'm in the Scholars Program. I'm a political science student. I'm going pre-law. My transfer goal schools are Ivy League. I'm USCLA, USC, I'm part of the TAG, and I have TAP applicants. So that as far as credentials go. And my background is also in marketing. Grassroots did that myself. I helped founder build his company up to $5 million without a degree at 21, 22 years old. And now I want to focus on social impact, which is what led me to SMC and continue my story here. So that is my credentials. I'm also a registered behavior technician and dealing with kids with autism, with ASD. So now concerns. My 2 concerns are community and student engagement. These are my 2 concerns because these are the root problems of all of our issues. You talked about the math classes being taken out. We talked about homelessness. We talked about basic needs. Things are too expensive. Why? Because there's a lack of community. There's a lack of student engagement. Things are going to get more high price if there's not enough supply. If there's not enough demand, the supply is going to get high price. Or they're going to ration out. Or it's the demand. Normally, supply when there's a large supply, when there's a large supply, they're going to raise the prices. But because there's little students purchasing the materials here, that's why they raise the prices. And so then we have like the classes, they're not getting their support. Okay, well, if we can't address that through the state and institution level, how can we show up for each other? The thing about it is the Ethics Studies Department was fully established by a student-led movement, all organized by students, taught by students. They were called the Black Students Associations at SFSU got together to teach these classes because the campus would not provide them. And eventually, Native Americans, Asians, and Pacific Islanders and everybody else, Latinos, got together, labeled themselves the third world people, and they fought for this. So what really is, when we think about how do we show up for each other, how do we actually bring change, again, the change is us. It's us showing up for each other. And how do we engage students more? With having a community for them.
Hi, thank you for the question. So some of my qualifications, as you know, I'm already serving 1 full year in the board of directors, and I have the experience to lead the meeting myself now. I've submitted several proposals. I've organized a field trip. How hard is that? We have too many forms out there. We need to streamline the process, and that's what I'm advocating for. Some of my other qualifications, as you know, I'm served in the Student Senate for California Community College as a caucus leader. I'm secretary for the Women's Caucus and the Student Research Caucus as well. I've advocated on a national level for the protection of the FAFSA in Washington, D.C. I'm also going next week to General Assembly to defend my resolutions, which I've wrote, sponsored by the Santa Monica College Associated Students. The things that I think are most important to work on right now is basic needs. There's a large homeless population in our campus, as you guys know, and we also don't have a lot of resources here to support our students who are facing those challenges. We could have lockers for students to put their stuff when they go to classes. We could have better resources for them to fulfill their basic needs in order for them to learn, such as showers, such as increase the bodega resources. And those will be my solutions as well.
It was Third World Liberation Front, not Third World Peoples for the San Francisco State, but that's a good reference. I like that, Third World Liberation Front.
Okay, try to make it as concise as possible. We're going to try to cut down time, so we're going to have 2 minutes max.
There will be pizza afterwards. It won't be super before. I mean, there'll be more.
What everyone's here for. Let's get down to priorities.
Right. Again, my name is Kylie Ascano.
Hello, Kylie.
Okay.
My question is, well, it's a 2-part question, but the first part is very quick. For Val, how many course credits are you currently taking?
That's a great question. I'm actually taking, right now I believe it's been a little bit of a shift, but right now I believe it should be 13 or 14. And on top of that, I'm a full-time student, and on top of that, I'm in the track team, so I'm an athletic student as well, and I serve on the Associated Student Board, so you know that requires a really good time management, which is one of my biggest strengths.
Are you on the Law Pathway program as well?
No, I'm not in the law program as well.
You said you were doing political science.
Yes, I'm
so
in political science.
You know, the reason I asked that is because between what I've read in your election statement and your statement you just made for the previous question, highlighting all of the things that you are currently doing, your 18 credits, basically, how would you address a student's concern that with all of these things on your plate, you may not be able to properly provide the support or, you know, the due diligence to complete this role the way it needs to be completed?
Is that for me?
I mean, it's an open-ended question, but for me, I feel like you two, out of the 4 candidates, appear to have the most going on as far as schedule. You know, it sounds like your schedule is really full. So, and I'm sure some people would think, like, with all of this going on, where are you going to make time to really be the AS president?
That's a good question.
I know.
That's a good question.
I could answer as well.
Yeah.
You can go now.
Yeah.
So for me, I know having a full plate is something that I had to address. I missed a lot of stuff when I first started coming to school. which is why I mentioned before I was struggling. I struggled to like want to be here. I faced many problems that most students had. Once I kind of got into the swing of things, what I did was I joined as many clubs as I could. Right now I'm a part of SMC's National Organization of Minority Architects Students, which is a club that is basically students and the teachers, the professors are like basically hand in hand, where you can kind of get extra help outside of class. And I realized through the clubs I was able to mingle with students who could help me with my homework, for instance, or find places and times where I know like sometimes it's hard to find a place on campus where you might want to go study, but if you know meet for a club and you're already in that environment, the answers are like, hey, like let's talk about this, let's do that. So I think engagement becomes the answer to the fact that like I don't have enough time for these things. Another thing is creating like an online presence. I think we can phone it in. Of some of these clubs and things, we could phone it in as long as we're getting the right information, as long as we're like doing the participation. I think it's up to the clubs to like have that capacity to be like, hey, like we don't care if you can't make it to every single meeting, but we want you to still be able to participate. And I feel like that should be the mindset.
You know, I'm gonna just say, I mean, one sentence, if I could describe it, I got a full plate, but I love to eat, right? Let me tell you. I think, you know, it's very easy. I think you have a great question and you have very, you know, valid concerns. But if I didn't think I could put my 110% into this position, I wouldn't do it. Because I know that the responsibility that it requires, I know the time and the dedication and the diligence that it requires. So if I knew I couldn't dedicate 120, 150, 200% to it, let me tell you, I wouldn't do it. And that's just me. I mean, I don't know about these other folks. I'm sure they're the same. But let me tell you, I think, you know, as this is like a lot of people's first exposure to public service, right? The most accessible way to get into public service. And the type of person I am, I would never, you know, elevate myself up to this position if it didn't mean that I could do my job to the best of its capability.
Very simply, like you
Yeah.
seem very educated and intelligent.
I appreciate that.
Like I respect that a lot.
I appreciate that.
You concern me the most with this concern because you're like, I'm taking 18 credits and I'm doing a million things. You're like, I can give 110%.
Right.
But like you're already 95% of your plate's full already.
Right.
So it's like you got this much. But anyways, I'll let the next candidate go. That's just, look, you're a no candidate.
I appreciate
but
you. Yeah.
Scare me in that.
Great question. Great question. I think what a lot of students don't realize when they join IAS is the time commitment this will take. And for me, advocating for students is a lifelong mission. I will always put advocating for students first before anything else because this is my passion, this is my commitment to you guys, and that's the question, that's the answer.
Yeah, so one thing one of my professors had told me when he heard I was running is that, remember, this position will take so much out of you, and then people are going to be pulling you across all directions. But what's important is that you remember you're a student first. And so with that being in mind, luckily with my job, my grant is potentially ending by June. So I'll have an open schedule, you know, and that will allow me to be on campus more. Additionally, if I could show you my Google Calendar, color-coded, time-blocked, commute, getting ready, you know, so it's very, very clear how that's broken down, time management. And so, so with my schedule, you know, lessening and, you know, things I've also been getting used to this workload, you know, on top of these programs that I'm currently in part of that I explained with my credentials. I'm also Vice President of Indigenous Scholars, and we are founding a club for the first time and providing a voice for the first time. And all of this takes tedious steps and intentional steps that take time, takes a lot of effort, but it's all about your time management, prioritizing, and delegation. That's the key. Can we delegate effectively?
I will say I do appreciate all of your answers, and you've all given really good. Sorry. Yeah, I appreciate your answers. You did good, all of them. Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
So can we stay longer? We don't have to leave at 8, but just, I apologize for the pizza. It's gonna be a little bit warm. It's not gonna be hot. But that's okay. This is more important. This is more important than cold pizza. You can take it home and microwave it if you want.
He said, you can take it home.
Take it.
Take it home. She said, take it home. Microwave it. That's what she said.
So every year in AS, a major topic we discuss in our board meetings is how we can utilize the prior year's surplus, which, to put it simply, it's like the additional money that's left over from last year's budget. Usually this is in the form of a legacy project, which takes into consideration of addressing concerns of the student body or improving the accessibility of resources. With that in mind, what, if any, specific ideas do you have to spend the prior year surplus or a possible legacy project?
I'll start. Cafeteria revamp. I think we should create more spaces for people to get along. I think our Caton Center is great. I think our cafeteria is great. I think if we can revamp it and not just dedicate funding to new furniture, right? Dedicate this prior year surplus to curating and building a space very intentionally. And by this, I mean, looking at people or getting information from people who can actually build that space for us, right? Who can give us ways, right? Interior designers always know their ways between the good feng shui and how to make a space really, welcoming and open for people. I think things around campus that facilitate, I think community is really big. I think that's one thing that I heard that I completely agreed with, is that if we can facilitate community by building these spaces on campus, right? And helping our, I think building these spaces, building our equity center, building our Caton Center, building our cafeteria up, making these spaces that people, who may have the option to leave or go home may choose to stay here at Santa Monica and spend some time, building that community, building those relationships between people. That's something that I would probably use the prior year surplus for.
I'm not sure if this is possible, but I would like to orchestrate or propose maybe a collaborative club project that incorporates the clubs so we could utilize, because I feel like we have a lot of different people who have a lot of different skills that could be utilized for a big project, and I think we could probably do something of that nature, see what clubs are on the campus this semester, and orchestrate something that the people want, something that they could vote on and choose, and maybe even go through a step-by-step process to help them walk them through, do you like this color? Do you like this? Do you want to revamp this room? Do you want to do that? And I feel like the more engagement we have with people to give them control, I think that's what it's about, is you let them, have a decision on what they want. I believe this building here was actually paid for by the AS students not too long ago. I'm not too sure about that, but I heard something that we had a vote on that some years ago. So I feel like that could be something that could be implemented going forward. So that shows you that we as the students do have power to change things.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Do you know how much is that budget?
Sorry?
Do you know how much is that surplus?
It's different every year.
Okay, is it roughly from 500 to $1 million, or like? $30,000 to $70,000.
So we have a smaller surplus of around 30 to 70K.
Okay, so I think what's important is, like I said, I already took the survey on what do students actually want here, and one of them is food. A major one is good food. Okay, and then I think we can also, how do we provide more transportation for these students? Additionally, the third strategy before diving into solidifying an idea is, what were the ideas you guys had last year, and why didn't they go through? And which ones were the ones that people really wanted to do, but it just couldn't happen due to other issues. So for me to exactly say a specific project, I want to focus it on what the needs are, but I will say good food. Food has been one of the #1 things. Another thing has been an entertainment center. I know I've been pointing out the table tennis, but everyone wants a pool table. I can show you this poster. Everybody wants a pool table. A lot of people also want a 24-hour gym. A lot of people also want a 24-hour library. So these are kind of ideas that I'll build off of how do we use this money effectively, and can we build off ideas that people have wanted to do.
So one of the biggest gaps that we have in our campus currently is the lack of mental health resources for our students. We have a Center for Wellness and Wellbeing, but we could be so much more, such as other campuses in California. In fact, I wrote a resolution that I will be defending next week about increasing mental health resources in California community colleges. It advocates for online mental health resources providers collaborating with community colleges. Also advocates for the power of therapy animals on campus, such as other things. Currently, I'm working with our vice president to use our current prior year surplus to use it on that purpose.
Thank you for your answers.
So I'll be quick here. Santa Monica College is, sorry, I'm David Duncan, the current AS president. So right now, Santa Monica College is in a tough financial situation. It's expected over the next year there will be additional cuts to staff, ones that will affect available classes, student resources, and basic needs funding. As the face and voice of the student body, how will you represent the students in these difficult discussions? And what do you think are the most important resources on our campus for the SMC administration and Board of Trustees to protect?
So what are the most important questions, and how are we going to ensure students are safe and heard through these difficult times?
Essentially, yeah.
Now we have to repeat it again.
I could start. I've actually been to some of these advisory meetings. I've been to this district planning advisory committee. I've been to the budget subcommittee. I know what it looks like to be in these meetings. They're 3 hours long. They're in a gray room. It's very bleak. But someone has to be there. I think voicing the concern, right? I think we need someone as the voice of the campus, right? You mentioned that you're the voice of the associated students, you're the voice of the student body. You need somebody who's going to be outspoken, but in a way that's effective, right? You need someone who knows the facts. You need someone who knows and has the knowledge of prior years precedent, historical precedent, what other schools, what Santa Monica has done to get out of crises like this, because I can guarantee that it's not the first time that it's happened. And we can operate using these precedents, right? Using our voice, using our guiding principles as a student body, and voice these to our board, right? We have a wonderful student trustee coming in. We have a team that is dedicated to each part of whether it's the Board of Trustees at the district level, whether we have representatives at these district planning advisory committee meetings. We have a singular voice that can be sent to all of these meetings. So I guess the answer, to your question, we need to develop guiding principles. We need to understand what is most important for our students, what is most important for retention, for enrollment, for keeping, not only putting a Band-Aid over the solution, but creating a sustainable solution that will not get us or will, bring this problem down from happening, right? Make sure that it doesn't happen again. Make sure or minimize the risk of it happening again, right? So sustainable solutions for students, all right, not a Band-Aid. So voicing our concerns now, voicing our concerns with knowledge, voicing our concerns with intention and with diligence. That's our solution to these budget cuts.
I think I would go back to what I was saying earlier, like a big project that incorporates a lot of the clubs. I think if money becomes an issue, I think we have a finance club department with people who know these type of things. We have students who are in that department. I feel like we could formulate a real plan together and then bring it to the trustees. We could come together architecture, your finance, economics. So I feel like utilizing these talents, reaching out to the students to help solve the problem, it creates engagement. I could speak from personal experience. When I first started in architecture, we competed in the Nashville BGL competition. We weren't sure, it was 3 of us. The projects usually take 6 people. It was a lot of work, and we went and we placed very high. That gave us the motivation to come back the next year and go back to the competition again. So once we were able to get a team together again, we got people around, we let them know, we went here, we did this, we had this result, and we could do better next year. I feel like having plans that get students involved is one way that we can constantly get more involvement. And I'll continue with that story. few years down the line, just this past year, we are the first community college to actually place within the in the 25 years of the competition in the top percentile. Like, we literally made it to the final round, and that was through dedication of every year addressing the problem, figuring out what needs to be done, planning, and then executing. And that's what I feel like is going to take for us to address the problems that are happening now. Everybody's problems are valid, and we take them into consideration, and we pull them together, and then create a solution.
So I would think with the current political climate and where we're shifting towards, and seeing that from 2019 until now, we're projected to lose 2,000 students, and we're seeing a drop, like 1,000 or two less non-residential students than there was in the previous years. So I think what's tying that into, the reason I'm highlighting that is our admission process, and that affects our finances. So I think the two most important departments that we can focus on through these troubling budget cuts is our FAFSA office and our counseling office. The reason I say that, kids are going to be worried. What about their FAFSA? What about their scholarships? What about their residency status? What do they qualify for? The lines are going to get longer, and there's going to be more questions that people don't have. And secondly, counseling. Has anybody here gone to get general counseling, like, at all? What was your experience?
I mean, I feel like I kind of had a great time because I already knew what I wanted to do,
Okay.
which is architecture.
And that's, but that's an outlier, because at majority of the times, majority of the time they're closed, and they're quick brush out. They're not case by case. And so students end up not enrolling into classes, taking the classes, end up not having the right classes, end up dropping those classes. They give up on their education. Our admission rates go down. They have an awful experience at Santa Monica. I would say those are the top two to be focused on. And how do we keep our students secure during these times? Leaning onto community, leaning onto that. Do they feel supported? Are there peers that they can go to talk about these situations? Because they don't need to go to the administration every single time. Sometimes they just need someone like them to hear them out.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So, in the face of budget cuts at SMC, what do you think, how would you represent students in discussions about the budget, and what do you think are the resources that it's most important for the college and the Board of Trustees to protect?
So the budget cuts, it's not something it's just Santa Monica is dealing with. We're definitely dealing with, since we experienced a reduction from a large campus to a medium-sized campus, it's definitely affected us, and administration has said there's going to be cuts everywhere, not just one office or the other. So how do we represent our students best? First, I would make sure every student feels heard. If they're being affected by it, we'll make sure they have the wellness and well-being centers there for them. We will launch out campus-wide surveys to make sure their concerns are being heard, and how can we, as associated students, support them where they are. Furthermore, not only, as I mentioned, not only the campus is affected by it, but other campuses across California and across the entire nation, especially now since the administration's new budget proposes cuts on the education department, and it's even trying to dismantle the Department of Education, which could impact FAFSA potentially. I think it is important as Associated Student Board to stand up to that and to make sure we can say that we're not okay with that, that's not acceptable.
Thank you.
My name is Andrea. Okay, so historically, our associated student presidents have first served as directors, mostly, gaining valuable experience and deeper understanding of our constitution, fiscal policies, and the nuances of student governance that extend beyond the written bylaws. Given that you have not served not served as directors, what specific qualifications or experiences do you possess that demonstrate your readiness to effectively serve as president?
I would like to say my tenacity is the thing that will push me forward, is because, again, architecture, it's all I know. And because it's all I know, I'm willing to hear out others to figure out what's going on. I've been a part of AS since I believe Kimiko was here as president, and I feel like just participating in AS, figuring out what's going on, asking these questions over time is one of the things that got me to this point of okay, how do I absorb this information? How do I apply it? How do I continue to progress in this space? And I feel like just learning from the past precedents, learning from people in past positions, reaching out to the people, and that goes back to the first question we asked, how do you build community? I think it starts with the community. I don't have all the answers, but I know who does, and it's these people over here. And I'm the one that's gonna ask them, hey, why can't we do this again? Oh, okay, because the plan doesn't work. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's plan. Okay, why can't we do this again? Oh, this is it? Okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's plan. And that tenacity is what's gonna take us to wherever we wanna go as students. I feel like, again, it's the students that matter. It's the students' voices that matter. And you need somebody that's just gonna push for what you want, or at least be able to listen to what you want and in a compromised way, give it to other people palpatably. Like, hey, this is what these people want. Maybe this is outrageous, but where can we meet them in the middle? So, tenacity.
I'll push back on your question just a little bit. I know I'm not a director, but I do serve as primary commissioner of budget. I work under Jordan Davis. Shout out to Jordan. Jordan, thankfully, has mentored me in a way that I feel like I have been able to get the experience that I need to do this position and serve in this position effectively. I'm in the meetings where we're adjusting the fiscal policy. I'm in the meetings in the District Planning Advisory Committee where I'm representing students as a proxy for Jordan. I'm in those meetings. I understand how they work. I understand the roll call. I understand what we do. I understand how it's done. I understand our boundaries and our capabilities, what we can and can't do. So I'll push back a little bit there that as primary commissioner, I've done a lot of work to make sure that I have the experience to be able to settle into this position effectively. What was the second part of your question?
What is your values?
Right.
You have, not as a director, that you can provide.
Right. So I just talked about the commissioner, but again, I mentioned before that I've done civic engagement work during the 2024 election. I'm really blessed to have been able to work with the people that I did, to be able to understand the impact of stories, to be able to understand the impact of talking to people face to face. That makes me a candidate that can talk to people effectively, that can understand how I can get from point A to point B through a conversation, right? I understand the stories, and I'm able to balance the stories with the quantitative, right? Obviously, my math background prepares me for that, but also doing research for the city of Santa Monica, doing research over here at UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs, shout out to UCLA, right? I've been able to get all of that experience and all of these necessary tools in my toolkit to be able to prepare me well for this position.
So I am currently Vice President of Indigenous Scholars, and so I'm also the ICC delegate with that. And so I do a lot of the paperwork and the foundational movements to organize events, and that comes with knowing how that works and what gets approved and what doesn't, also attending those budget meetings. On top of that, AS and these clubs operate as a nonprofit, like a 501c3, right? Majority of them do, because we are accessing public funds. Because of that, there is all these regulations, right? There's all these protocols I have to follow and different things. So my background in working in nonprofits as a supervisor, attending meetings with government agencies like the Office of Community Partnerships and Strategic Communication, I am well aware of the bureaucracy and the way that things operate in a more diplomatic environment. And I'm familiar with the SMC's processes as Vice President of Indigenous Scholars and the ICC delegate for them.
Thank you. So my name is Brian. I'm running to be one of the directors for instructional support. And I also happen to be an international student from Indonesia. So I'm part of the 33,300 students approximately that's attending Santa Monica College under an F1 visa status. Currently, we're seeing attacks under the Trump administration in regards to free speech. For example, in March 25th, Tufts University graduate student was arrested after she co-authored a paper to attack the leaders of the Tufts University over anti-Semitism and also about the Gaza issue. My question is, we've seen and heard from all four candidates in regards to how you want to help students, but I feel that none of you have highlighted how you will help F1 international students. So, my question is, how will you protect free speech made by international students and from maybe potential ICE arrests And second is, how do you plan to incorporate and represent these roughly 3,300 international students on campus?
I can start on this. I'll push back a little bit, just because, and our 3,000, they're small but mighty, this population of F1 visa students. And, I talked about this before, we need a team of people who can reach out to our local, state, and federal representatives and talk to them directly, to talk to them face to face and tell them the concerns that students like you are facing. Because what we're seeing around the country is not only an attack on free speech, but it's an attack on diversity of thought and of skin color and of ethnicity and of background. Here at Santa Monica, as president, I'll make sure that we create an environment that doesn't tolerate that. Because we do not tolerate any inhibition of free speech. We don't tolerate anything that prohibits anybody from expressing their free thought, from expressing their background in a way that makes them feel pride, right? You take pride as an international student, and I think that's wonderful. I take pride as an immigrant. We all take pride in our different identities, and I'm going to make sure that we assemble a team that takes it to our federal, state, and local representatives to make sure students like you are protected. You can talk.
Okay, so I love that question. One, I'm already on a task force for my community of undocumented immigrants to making sure that we're reporting ICE when we see them, making sure that they have access to immigration legal aid, and ensuring that they feel safe and protected and have access to the right information. So I think one of the things is that we really need to implement more Know Your Rights workshops in your language, That is the main issue. We need to provide red cards to your club and disseminate them in your language. Okay. Secondly, the other thing is that I want to point out is every classroom, right? We've started to disseminate ICE papers that if ICE were to ever show up, all the teachers show them this paper. That's it, and that's enough to keep you. You cannot enter the classroom without that, right? And so on top of that, that is how we can make sure that you guys are safe. And by leaning into the community and we build solidarity with other cultural clubs. We've seen, we're already building solidarity with Adelante, Indigenous Scholars, Black Collegians, and we're fighting them against that RevCom situation that happened, right? So if we were to build an alliance with you, if something were to happen, how impactful would it be when we all stand up to it? Okay, so we can fight at the legislative, we can fight at the Capitol, but the war is happening right here.
So international students are some of the heart of Santa Monica College, especially since we are required to meet the minimal in-person ground units. We are, some of the people you see, chances are they're international. That's why you see them so often. As international students, I am very passionate about advocating for our representation and making sure free speech is not limited. Moreover, they're increasing the out-of-state fees, they're already high enough. This is a community college. It should be accessible to everyone, no matter where you are from, at the end of the day. It's terrible that the new administration is targeting international students for using their free speech, especially in Columbia University. A green card holder is being potentially deported. That's unheard of. I believe free speech is one of our fundamental rights, and every student should be entitled to using it. It should be common sense.
I agree with both of the constituents here that we should fight legislatively and we should also create more groups. I think the ally part is great. I think that's the key part. If we could get more clubs involved, people that want to participate, let them know, create more environment, and basically create a watch network too. We should be standing together. I shouldn't be allowed to come into the campus and grab students and take them where they want to go, where they want them. That's not cool. And I think we, as a community, that's a community issue. We have to build that community, watch out, hey, maybe even a Discord chat, maybe even just hey, be careful, asking directly, what do you fear? I know, another international student, Nazir, I'm gonna shout him out, he was telling me that the prices are going up as well, and it's hard to be here as a F1 student, and also with the fear of losing that visa, you're paying so much money, it's you're investing. F1 students, they basically, it's a lot of the funds we get come from them. So I think that we should do our best to protect them. They're like assets, You guys matter. Your voices matter. And like she said, the language thing, that's something that, like, I don't speak your language, but if we have more students that look like you, that have your language, that could communicate, like, with you, and then also take what your ideas are and write them to, like, the legislative, write to the governor overwhelmingly, even if they don't ever do anything, I think the process of us doing it, it matters. That influx of whether it be mail, phone calls to, like, the mayor, and that's the part of the community, and having people who, again, like myself, I would be like, yo, that's your issue, let's go solve it. So that's where I'm at.
Great question.
Great question.
Any other questions?
Can I add on to that?
Oh, yay.
But we
I
have
mean,
a-
not yay that it's over, but
Well, Adriana.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to all of the candidates who spoke tonight, and thank you to all of the students who asked questions. As a reminder for all the students, voting opens on March 31st and closes on April 3rd. If you'd like to make your voice heard, please remember to vote during that week. Thank you, and have a good night.
Y'all handled those questions quite well.
I don't know what I'm You were really out there killing it, my
Appreciate it.
Econ.